Story 1. A crazy little incident at the World of Walls I witnessed when visiting an aunt who lives in Texas post-pandemic. This day, I went shopping with my aunt at what we shall call the World of Walls store. It rhymes with that. And we walked in on what could be called the most entitled, weirdest incident I have ever witnessed, with a very satisfying ending too. But I digress. On with the story. We were shopping and having a great time. I love my aunt and really enjoy her company. We were talking about nothing in particular: her husband's latest project, the latest blanket she was making for her new grandbaby, etc. As we shopped, we started to hear a loud voice getting louder, rude, and very condescending in tone. It stopped briefly, then a shout, "Get the heck out of the way!" No responding voice, so the shout came again, even louder. I said, "Get the heck out of the way." Being curious and a bit nosy, we went in that direction and found a woman that was every bit the description of a Karen. Short, bobbed hair, 2 sizes too small yoga pants, and a shirt that looked as if she was trying to relive her youth despite being what looked like over 40 and overweight. She was shouting at an older man who, by all appearances, was in no hurry and wasn't about to hurry just because she was being impatient. He turned and looked at her, not saying a word, and stared at her with hardened eyes and a no-nonsense look on his face. He then turned back to what he was doing and ignored her. She turned to a nearby shopper and said loudly, "This is why I hate this state. Everyone is so rude and ignorant here." By this time, having heard her insulting his home state, the shopper turned and answered her, "Then go back home. This is exactly why we dislike people like you here, and we make sure you know you're not welcome around here." What we didn't know at that time is that she had been bragging loudly about how much better California was and that Texas was full of nothing but bumpkins and rednecks. She got this shocked, "How dare you" look on her face and actually slapped him, at which he promptly slapped her back hard enough to half-spin her and nearly knock her into the closest shelves. "Shall we try that again?" he inquired mildly. "You assaulted me. I'm going to have you arrested," she screamed at him after her brain stopped spinning in its tiny space and wound up to slap him again. He simply raised his hand, palm exposed, and looked at her. She actually slapped him again, and this time he slapped her back hard enough she landed on her rear with a loud oof that sounded like a beached whale trying to breathe. By this time, a manager in security had arrived in time to see her second swing at him and his reaction. To shorten what would be a long description of events with unnecessary details, they helped her up onto her feet. She immediately started with a crocodile tears and a "woe is me" tale, telling a heavily embellished version of what happened. He simply told the truth. He said, "If you doubt my word, you can always check the security cameras for what happened." In the meantime, the Karen was still crying, putting on a show, and telling more and more about the incident, adding even more details that never happened and didn't make any sense. All the while, she was demanding the police be called and that he be arrested for assaulting her and threatening to kidnap her, among other nonsense. We noticed at that time that no one around her believed her, and some were scoffing and making disapproving sounds at her. In the end, the Karen was the one being escorted out in cuffs. She went kicking and screaming all the way, earning herself several charges for assaulting an officer, kicking the officers, spitting on them in the process, and for the destruction of store property. She kicked over 2 displays and destroyed a shelf as she was dragged out. The gentleman was fine and not charged with anything. It turns out he was and is an ex-Texas Ranger himself. Yes, they do still exist, but not like in the days of the Old West. They're actually a separate law enforcement agency from regular police or state troopers. Story 2. Preface: I am not self-harming. I am just a very clumsy person with a high pain tolerance who works with sharp objects. I also wear these bandages to keep me from scratching at them because I have no self-control. The story. I injure myself a lot, falling downstairs, bumping into a wall, getting a face full of the door at work. I also have high pain tolerance, so most of my scrapes are just superficial and just look kinda gross. So I cover them with something: Band-Aids, medical tape, a tissue, and tape. This is where our cumulative issues begin. My nervous habit is to pick at my nails, to the point that they will bleed. To counteract this, I put pieces of medical tape around my nails and fingers, so I almost constantly have tape around my fingers. I do Science Olympiad. My event requires me to cut pieces of wood with a saw or box cutter. Not being the master of fine motor skills, I do eventually slip up, so I slap another Band-Aid on that. Finally, I do theater. The scenes we do are kinda rough. I'm in multiple fight scenes, and we do it on cheap office carpet. So many carpet burns on elbows and knees. A few months ago, we switched schedules, and I had to go to my Bible class. Now, this teacher is in no way the best, but she's tolerable. So we have little old me walking into class with at least 5-10 band-aids, still on edge from a presentation before, and now getting stares from the teacher. My classmates were chill with all the band-aids at this point, and there are no additional issues. While we are doing the worksheet, the teacher comes over and says, "May we talk after class?" My obedient little self says, "Sure." We get to after class, and she tells me that my band-aids are disturbing. I told her that I could change to skin tone ones, these were bright colors. She says no. This dense carrot tells me, they're unsightly and you shouldn't hurt yourself. I sigh and agree to stop wearing band-aids just to please this stale turnip. The next day rolls around, and I show up to school with some scabby fingers, strawberry knees, and some scratches on my arm. Personally, I'm fine with blood and ike, but even this was kinda unsightly. Walking into class extra early just to see the horrified look on the sour beet's face is lovely. My knees started to bleed a little from the constant movement. She pulled me aside again after class and said I could continue using my band-aids. Sigh. People should really stop getting into other people's business. Story 3. Back when I was in college, I had a job as the night receptionist security for the dorm I lived in. Easy job. Check IDs of folks coming in to ensure they were residents or have them call a resident to have them escorted to their room. I also walked the floors and parking lot every hour. In the parking lot was the usual motley assortment of student cars. The back row was filled with fancy cars, all parked at an angle, crossing two spots. Obviously, the rich jerks' cars. I had noted the illegal parking many times in my log, told the campus police when they looped through, etc. The campus police told me not to bother, as the chief would just throw the tickets away because the parents would call and raise heck that their babies had to park that way to protect their cars. Most evenings, the night owls, late-night study folks, the all-nighters, etc., would hang out in the lobby, anywhere from 312 or more on exam weeks. I trusted a couple of folks to cover the desk while I did my rounds. One night, I had just settled down after a set of rounds. The pizza place had delivered my sub and six-pack of cola to get me through the long, dull middle of my shift. Things were settling down. Folks were starting to head for bed. So it's around 2:30 a.m. when we hear bang, bang, bang from the lot. I and the remaining late-night folks go out to see what's going on. Every single fancy car had been hit, the exposed fender having been bashed in. Someone said they saw an unknown junker hitting every one of them, backing up, hitting the next car, etc., then taking off. More folks came pouring out of the door to see what had happened, including the rich jerks, who, of course, were yelling about the damage to their precious cars, yelling at me to call the campus police. I was already starting back to the lobby to call the cops anyway. With them yelling at me, I just took my own sweet time. The officer shows up, takes pictures of the damage and how the cars are parked, then starts writing tickets for illegal parking, which of course set off the rich jerks again. Fully documenting the damage includes documenting the illegal parking, which means I must issue tickets. Between the photos of illegal parking sent to the insurance companies and the tickets, none of the insurance companies paid out, or so the rich jerks claimed for months afterward. From that day forward, no one parked at a slant taking up 2 spaces, and roughly half of the rich jerks' cars were never seen in the lot again. Story 4. Backstory. I'm a retired IT guy who still kept tabs on his old workplace simply because I really enjoyed working there, and there was a solid mutual respect between the owners and the staff. So I basically told them that while I am retired, I wouldn't mind lending a helping hand every once in a while should the need arise. However, I said don't overdo it. This year has turned into a weird year so far, but I can fully understand why they were having some issues, especially in this particular case. Anyway, I need to be a little careful with my write-up, but I also really need an outlet, so let's see. An ancient inventory system. Wednesday evening, I finally got home with enough free time to try the recently released update for Grand Theft Auto V. Just as I was being called in-game, my real cell phone also goes off. It's my former boss, who was very apologetic but said they had a major issue. One of their more specific clients called out for help because their automated inventory system had stopped working. They could cope. It wasn't an immediate emergency, But this was still a major problem because it was costing them big money. The main issue was that this particular client was still mostly using Windows XP, and we're still using our older automated inventory system, which was co-developed by yours truly in Java, using NetBeans as the main interface. Make me some coffee, you. Nope. So today, Friday, at the time of writing, I dress up in a suit and head over there to see what I can do to identify and maybe fix the problem. I arrive around 13 o'clock, no way in heck that I am going to give up my morning sleep over this, and I am greeted by the manager. We talk a bit about the whole situation, and he explains to me that the main issue is that the XP server doesn't seem capable of contacting anything else on the network anymore. I get to work and see that the computer itself is still working, but it would seem that the network card has finally given out. This is a bit of an issue because modern cards don't provide Windows XP support, nor would they even fit anymore. The good part, however, is that we can still extract data from all this. And while I am looking over the small office, an idea dawns on me. Because I still had some more research and work to do. I figured I'd put in my earbuds and ask Bixby, Samsung's personal digital assistant, on my phone to call my office, all the while making sure that I had my phone on full display out in the open so that it would be obvious to anyone that I was on a call and not going insane talking to myself. It got even a bit funny when one of the friendly secretaries asked me if I wanted something to drink. So then I had to back switch a bit and try not to laugh when my colleague asked me in the background to tell her that he wouldn't mind a coffee himself. My plan was simple: extract all the customized macros we had made, and then maybe we could port all that onto one of our company servers, allowing the client to use the whole platform through a web interface. The main concern would be moving the database, but we've been using PostgreSQL from the get-go, so I didn't see many issues there, leaving only the translation of the macros and some custom Java code towards C#. Sure, this would involve costs, but maybe we could sell this idea by allowing more people to access the interface in the current situation. This was limited, a strict client-server setup. So here I was, in front of a somewhat disassembled computer, earbuds in, and talking back and forth while my phone was lying on the table next to me. Context: I am the only one wearing a suit around here, and I cannot help but be certain that this is what started the whole thing. My talk with the boss had just ended, and I decided I'd keep my buds in for now. Also because I had a radio app still open on my phone, which responded the moment I touched my right bud. Note: I did make sure not to overdo it. It was background music at best, and I could hear everything around me. The entitled chief executive officer. Next moment, someone else wearing a suit enters the room, and he's immediately greeted by the manager, who also showed me around. It was also at this time when I found a USB stick that actually worked on this PC. Great! That will help to make a most recent backup, so I fire up the command prompt and make sure the database is shut down. Once I'm sure, I start a copy process on the same command line environment. Then I suddenly hear it. "Hey you, support guy, get me a coffee." I look up and see the guy, who looked to be in his 30s, look at me with expectation. The manager, immediately seeming to realize what is going on, responds, "I'll get you a coffee right away, sir." But he stopped. "No, I want him to do it," the guy goes. "Sorry, can't help you. I'm busy and don't work here," I responded. "What?" I said. "Get me a coffee, now." The guy retorts with an obvious smug look on his face. It was then that I knew this was not going to end well. And you know what? I couldn't care less either. "Not my job. Why not get it yourself?" I respond while also starting to round a few things up. I was definitely going to push this, but I wasn't going to blow up the whole project over it either. As I expected, I am your boss. When I say that I want you to make me a coffee, you make me a coffee, understand? The guy even slapped the table to get his point across. "Okay then, game on. You're not my boss, so get your own darn coffee," I tell him, while also giving more priority to the command prompt process to hopefully speed up the copy process a bit. The guy obviously did not appreciate someone talking back to him like this. The manager tried to intervene, but after a bit more talking back and forth, I was told, "I am the boss around here, you stupid idiot. Either get me my coffee or leave and get out of my company." "Suits me just fine. Can I get your signature on that? That you demand me to leave?" I ask while handing out my worksheet paper. And for sure, "Idiot," he tells me when signing. I immediately secured the document and packed up my stuff. "Thank you," Good luck with your broken inventory system, and have a great weekend, I tell him while I put on my coat. Wait, what? He goes. It's what I've been trying to explain, the manager goes. He's the contractor who is. At this time, I make my way towards the elevator. Well, was fixing our inventory system. The company told me he's the only one who still knows. The door to the office room closes, and that was all I heard. I get onto the elevator, and much to my surprise, I'm met with a red, out-of-breath chief executive officer who looks very apologetic as soon as I exit. The moment I see him, I tell him, "You'll have to make a new appointment." He starts down talking the whole thing without even bothering to say the magic word. Seriously, had he apologized then and there? But nope! So I reach the exit, turn around to face him, and tell him once again, "Sorry, this idiot is going to do exactly what you wanted me to do. Not my problem that you're too stupid to make your own coffee," and with that, I left. Outside, I immediately called the boss, who was in full support of my decision and action. I was a bit worried about that part, to be honest, and he agreed. They can make a new appointment. An update to this story could be uploaded later.